In today's video, we're diving deep into the rise of cryptocurrency futures, honing in on how CME Group has become the #1 exchange for crypto futures, even surpassing Binance. We'll discuss the impact of product innovation, including the launch of new futures and options products like the Ether Bitcoin ratio futures and micro options. And we'll also analyze the surge in open interest and volume in micro contracts and share the advantages these smaller size contracts offer to retail traders. Join me and Giovanni Vicioso, Global Head of Cryptocurrency Products at CME Group, for an in-depth look at CME Group's cryptocurrency products and the significant role they play in shaping the future of crypto futures trading. What's up, traders? Anthony Crudele here, and thank you for tuning in to the Futures Radio Show podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by CME Group. Whatever the obstacles, CME Group provides the tools that global market participants need to manage risk and capture opportunities. With 24-hour access to futures, options, cash, and OTC products across all major asset classes, you can drive your trading strategy forward with confidence and precision. CME Group, where risk meets opportunity. Gio, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Anthony.
It's great to have you here. First time on the Futures Radio Show podcast. It's really great to speak with you today. Tell everybody a little bit about your role at CME Group.
Sure. So I've been with CME Group now for a little bit over 11 years. I initially started at CME Group as part of their equity products and alternative investments group, but I always sat, say, more on the alternative side of that equation. Worked on things like water futures, commodity indices, and then was involved with the launch of Bitcoin futures back in December of 2017. And about a year ago, I was appointed global head of cryptocurrency products for the exchange.
And boy, have crypto futures come a long way, and that's going to be the focus of our discussion today. And, you know, most of the traders that I know are short-term trading the price action in Bitcoin. You always are going to have the hodlers out there that are just holding Bitcoin or other cryptos. But for the most part, crypto has become a lot more popular with day traders. And so I want to start off today with just what are the advantages of using CME Group futures versus, say, other crypto futures competitors?
Certainly, I think when you look at the market, right, and you even think about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's been around now, just recently turned 15, right? So when you look, say, at how long we've been in the market, we introduced Bitcoin futures back in December of 2017, right? And it's something that we do, right? That is our business, right? For over 180 years, CME has been providing investors with tools that they can use to manage, hedge risk. Right? And cryptocurrencies really are no different. So we've been involved in this market now for a little bit over 6 years. And when you consider, say, some of the competitors, perhaps not as long, but we bring regulated, trusted, accessible, and highly liquid cryptocurrency products to the exchange. In fact, we average over close to 11,000 Bitcoin futures contracts per day. Each contract represents, say, 5 Bitcoin. That's more than $1.5 billion to $2 billion, say, per day in terms of notional exposure, over 55,000 or close to 55,000 equivalent Bitcoin per day. Right? And interesting to note that our products are cash settled products. So there's no reason, for example, to establish a wallet. There's no concern, say, risk about being hacked. Right? These are cash settled products that settle to a regulated index, the CME and crypto facilities Bitcoin reference rate, which has now been published without fail since 2016.
You mentioned liquidity. As a day trader, that's one of the most important things. What separates CME Group's liquidity versus, like we said, these other crypto futures markets?
Yeah, we have market leading liquidity. When you look, say, at futures contracts, and you look at the cryptocurrency market, I mean, it is a fairly fragmented market. So you have, say, the relative, say, centralized spot exchanges. You've got some unregulated, say, cryptocurrency derivatives platforms, right? And you've got regulated platforms. When you look at our products, we lead in terms of average daily volume and looking at futures. We lead all say regulated exchanges. And even when you throw in, say, some of the unregulated platforms that also list futures contracts, we also lead in that category as well. In fact, we probably have more than a 70%, say, participation when comparing futures to futures. And when I say futures, I'm talking about, products, for example, that have a termination date. In the case of our futures contracts, we list monthly contracts. We list 6 consecutive monthly contracts, and then we also list an additional 4 quarterly contracts, and we'll always have 2 December contracts. So market participants can position their portfolios going out to 2 years on the curve.
So, Gio, what I want to explain to the traders, have you explain to the traders, is the real difference between an exchange like CME Group and how your crypto futures markets work and operate versus, say, some other exchanges, because CME Group is not making the markets. You're not opening up an account with CME Group to trade these. You're going through a broker. When other exchanges, you're opening up on them, and they may be making the market for these futures markets. I think there's a distinctual difference between the two.
Absolutely correct. And important to note, we provide the facility where buyers and sellers can meet to trade futures or options on futures. In order to access our markets, you need to establish an account, what are called futures clearing merchants, FCMs. And there are more than 40 such providers providing access to our cryptocurrency suite. In addition to the FCMs, there are introducing brokers that also provide access to our markets. And I think what's different, say, about our markets is through this network of clearing firms. The clearing firms are actually standing between client and the CME clearinghouse, and the CME clearinghouse acts as buyer to every seller and seller to every buyer. So the clearinghouse is guaranteeing, say, settlement for anybody, say, that trades in our exchange, which is different to the point that you made earlier, where on some other platforms you have an exchange, say, trading opposite to your position.
Yeah, that's such an important point, Gio, because I think that it's extremely important for day traders to know and understand how CME Group's futures markets work versus other crypto futures markets, and which is why, I tell anybody, if you're going to be trading crypto futures, you want to be going through CME. And one of the other things that I think is really great that you guys have done is the introduction of micros. You guys have different sized contracts. Talk to everybody about the different size Bitcoin and Ether futures contracts there are at CME.
Absolutely. So currently we list futures and options on futures on both Bitcoin and Ether. We introduced Bitcoin futures in December 2017, and that contract represents 5 Bitcoin. Right. So when you look at price action, and when Bitcoin hit close to 70,000 about a year and a half ago, that contract was close to $300,000 in terms of notional. So it became a little bit, say, too large for participants, say, to use. So we introduced micro contracts, and our micro Bitcoin futures contract is at 1/10 of a Bitcoin. So at current market values, the value of our current market prices, the notional value of our Bitcoin futures contract is roughly about $190,000. But when you look, say, at the micro contract, we're talking 1/10 of a Bitcoin. So at current levels, it's roughly about a 3,700 notional size contract. And when we look at Ether, we offer 2 Ether contracts as well. Our large Ether contract represents 50 Ether, and our micro-sized Ether contract represents 1/10 of an Ether. So there we're looking at a contract at current prices. The large Ether contract is roughly a little bit over $100,000 notional, whereas the micro Ether contract is roughly about $200 at the current levels. And it's important to also understand that when you trade a futures contract, it's a levered product. So in terms, say, of getting that exposure, in the case of our large Bitcoin contract, you don't need to actually post, say, $190,000 at current levels. You're posting, say, margin against that position. And currently, to gain exposure, say, to one contract, which represents 5 Bitcoin, you're posting $40,500 to get exposure to that contract that has a notional value of $190,000. So when you look at that, that's roughly about 22% that you post a margin that you're posting against that futures position. So you're getting almost 5-to-1 leverage by trading, say, our contracts. And if you look at our micro contracts, you're posting, say, about 22% of $3,700 in the case of Bitcoin futures. And in the case of Ether, it's roughly about 26%. So to get exposure, say, to our micro Ether contract, you're posting a little bit over $50 to get exposure to that micro Ether contract.
I'm so glad you talked about that, because that to me is such an important point for traders that are trading for price action. You have a choice for different contract sizes, and for those that want to hedge against their positions, because with the micro, you can more precisely hedge against your Bitcoin Cash, or not Bitcoin Cash. I know there's a Bitcoin Cash, more of your spot Bitcoin and your spot Ether, which I think is extremely important, because I have several friends that own a bunch of Bitcoin, and they're always like, man, the ups and downs in this is brutal. I wish there was a way to go against that. And, obviously they're not traders, but they could be hedging using futures. And I think that is really important for people out there that own crypto to understand, is that when you have these different sizes, you don't have to hedge your entire position. You could hedge a portion of it. And I think that's the beauty of the micros, and even talk about the options as well, because CME Group does have cryptocurrency options too.
Sure, absolutely. And maybe just to go back a little bit, say on our micro contracts, you're absolutely right that these smaller contracts can help investors and traders, say, fine tune their exposures. And certainly those products are there, say, to help market participants, say, hedge risk. But they're also available, say, if you're looking, say, for that exposure, you can also, or just looking to trade, you can also use those smaller products, perhaps even to test some strategies, right? So in addition, say, to our futures contracts, we also offer options on futures. We're seeing, say, particularly like this month, we've seen phenomenal growth on those products. In fact, when you look at our micro options on micro Bitcoin, micro Ether, look at November's volume, say, compared to October, we have more than doubled. The volume has more than doubled this month compared to last month. So we're seeing, say, more participants come to our market, and using options, say, as another tool to hedge risk and or gain exposure. We've seen, say, a slight rise in volatility across the crypto market. So options also, give you that ability to also, say, trade that volatility. And we're seeing, say, more market participants using the micro contracts in particular. At the moment, we are offering, say, fee discounts, say, for our micro contracts. And in the case of our micro options contracts, the exchange fees are reduced by 50%. And we also offer discounts for our micro futures contracts, both Bitcoin and Ether.
That's good to know. And, crypto's on the move again. And in this environment, if those of you that have been sitting with spot, we talk about the micro contracts. It's 1/10 the size. Just to give you a quick example in your mind, if you own one Bitcoin and you think that Bitcoin is going to slow down at 37, 38,000, wherever it is right now, you could sell one future, because it's the ease of being short as well with the futures contract, and that you could actually hedge that position in 1/10 increments. And I just always look at it as a trader, it's always about managing risk, right? And it allows you to really capitalize not only on the short-term movements, but to hedge during times where price may explode, and you think, wow, this is great, this is happening, but I don't know if these prices are going to hold, and you could use futures to being short. And I think just really briefly maybe touch, Gio, on the ease of being able to be short a crypto versus the difficulty of it is trying to short spot somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the cryptocurrency markets, the ability, say, to actually borrow Bitcoin and or Ether is not that easy, right? And the beauty, say, of a futures contract is that there is no need, say, to have to locate a borrow. You don't need to locate, say, Bitcoin or have Ether in order, say, to be able or borrow that Bitcoin and Ether in order to go short. Going short in our markets is as simple as just selling a futures contract. So if you do nothing else and say you sell Bitcoin futures, you are short Bitcoin. You're going to benefit, say, if the price of Bitcoin drops from where you sold it, right? And similarly, say, with Ether contracts. So there is no need, say, to locate, borrow Bitcoin and or Ether in order to go short. So much easier in the futures market as opposed to trying to do that in the spot market.
You mentioned the explosive growth that you're seeing right now in crypto futures and options. To what extent has product innovation, such as the launch of new futures and options products, played a role in CME Group's rise, really right now to the top in the crypto future space?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you think of product innovation, that's what CME does and what CME has been doing for now over 180 years, right? But we introduced Bitcoin futures in December 2017. We introduced Ether futures in February of 2021, and we really have been focused, say, on developing those two products by introducing the standards, the larger contracts, and introducing, say, micros that we discussed earlier, as well as options. And we really continue to focus on developing those products. And we're really seeing, say, those efforts really getting to pay off. In fact, when you look at open interest and look at open interest for Bitcoin futures, just this past Friday, we hit an all-time high of a little bit over 23,000 contracts. That's over 115,000 equivalent Bitcoin, more, say, than 4.5 billion in terms of notional exposure. And the activity that we've seen, we've been seeing, say, multiple interest records over the last 2 to 3 weeks. And it's really a testament, say, to the work that we've done, and also, say, growing, say, comfort when you look, say, at the cryptocurrency or the crypto community. You see a lot of the things that have happened in the space, particularly last year with the failures of a few crypto-focused firms. And I think what has happened is that we're seeing investors become or think about our products a lot more. The events that happened last year, I think, helped to crystallize really the understanding, appreciation for our regulated, trusted, highly liquid suite of Bitcoin Ether futures. And we're seeing that now as open interest grows. Not only did Bitcoin hit a record last Friday, but we also saw an all-time high for open interest on Ether, just a little bit over 7,200 contracts there. In addition to the records that we're seeing for open interest, we're also seeing growth in what the CFTC, our regulator, calls the number of large open interest holders. Now, that's defined as any entity that holds at least 25 contracts of say, Bitcoin futures or Ether futures. So in the case of Bitcoin, that's somebody that holds about $4.5 million position. In the case of Ether, somebody that holds about a $2.5 million position. For Bitcoin, we hit a high of 137 such holders just the week of November 7th, right? And we've been averaging over 110 such holders for the year. It used to be that we might have a month here or there where we averaged a little bit, where we averaged, say, over 100 such holders. For 2023, we've been consistently averaging over 100 holders. And I think that's a testament, say, to what we've done, say, in helping to grow this market, and really showing that the market is now more mature. The market is appreciating our trusted, say, regulated products. And I think that there's just growing comfort in Bitcoin in particular. When you look at coin 15 years old, it's shown that it's been tremendously resilient. In fact, since all of the events of last year, Bitcoin has more than doubled in price. It is about a little bit less, say, than 50% off its all-time highs. But 2023 has been, a phenomenal year for both Bitcoin and Ether.
I think what the futures markets have done is validated the product, specifically coming through CME Group. I think in these times that we have right now of uncertainty, and I always say I never am really too certain about any market environment as a trader. I'm always a little bit uncertain. But with the height that we're seeing, I think uncertainty, and we're seeing a lot of movement in interest rates, a lot of movements in currencies. I think that the futures markets validate Bitcoin and Ether in a much more widespread way than always just having to go to the spot market. I think that this allows people to participate in price action without having to actually go and open up a crypto account. I know a lot of my friends don't never want to open up a crypto account, but they think that Bitcoin can go higher or lower, and the futures markets provide that for them. I'm curious about the open interest. I mean, also something to point out is actually CME Group, I saw in some of the headlines, overtook Binance as the #1 exchange for crypto futures, which I think is really interesting. I mean, obviously Binance is still doing very well in the crypto future space, but to see CME overtake them, and we know they can go back and forth a little bit with open interest. But I think once again, it's an important thing to note on how open interest is growing. But from your perspective, why do you think that open interest in crypto futures is growing so much as of late?
You spoke, say, about futures, right? So certainly, yes, we overtook a Binance, say, in terms of futures, but it's not just futures. It also actually includes the so-called perpetual futures, perpetual swaps that have been fairly popular, particularly, say, in the unregulated derivative platforms. And even after accounting, say, for those products, we still overtook Binance. So I think that's an incredible, say, achievement. But I'd say really it just speaks, say, to the trust that the community is putting in our products. When you look at, say, how long some of these companies have been around, Bitcoin has only been around for 15 years, right? So any of these companies that are providing, say, or platforms, exchanges that are providing access, say, to either a crypto spot or crypto derivatives really haven't been around for that long. CME has been around for 180 years, and this is what we do. We started, say, helping butter and dairy farmers in the streets of Chicago manage their risk, right? And we're really 180 years later, we're doing, say, the same for Bitcoin. And we are the natural home for cryptocurrency products. We're the natural home where market participants come to manage risk across 6, maybe 7, count, say, Bitcoin, but across 6 different asset classes, right? We've been doing this for a long time. I think that market participants in the crypto space are really realizing that. So they're coming, say, to a trusted market, a regulated market, an accessible market, and a highly liquid market.
Yeah, what's funny about that is let's not forget why Bitcoin was originally created. It was to be decentralized, right? And and now we've come to the point where I think that was, I don't want to say that it's not rejected, but it's just more widely accepted as a regulated product. And I always find it to be interesting about how this whole ecosystem of cryptocurrencies has evolved. And the next thing that brings me to is really this ETF. Everyone's talking about this ETF and how that's going to have a big impact on the space. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the potential approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF, I think that's something that helps grow the ecosystem. When you look at the market now, it is a fairly fragmented market, but it's already an accessible market. You already have, say, spot. You already have futures. You have options. You have options on futures. You also have, say, the futures-based ETFs. So there's a lot of, say, entry points to the market already. But I think what the spot product brings, right, it will potentially bring, say, an additional audience to this space. So these would be participants that perhaps have been sitting on the sidelines, waiting, say, for that right moment, maybe waiting for an alternative product to enter the space. Entities that might not be comfortable opening up an account, say, at some of these unregulated exchanges to gain spot exposure, or maybe entities that might not be comfortable, say, trading futures, right? So it will open up the universe to more participants, and I think it will add, say, another product and more, say, trading opportunities as you see traders now having opportunities to trade Bitcoin or the price of Bitcoin across multiple products. And I see that as a positive, say, for the ecosystem, and I see it as a positive, say, for volumes as well.
How do you think an ETF would directly impact futures markets?
Yeah, so I think the ETF is going to augment the trading of futures. ETF providers are still going to need to hedge their portfolios, so they could use futures to hedge that exposure. Such ETF providers could also use futures, for example, to quickly equitize or futurize, say, a cash position, right? So, for example, let's say they get $1 million inflows, right? Rather than buy, say, use that million to buy the equivalent number of spot Bitcoin, they could simply, trade a futures contract to get that exposure immediately, then use a process that we called, or a mechanism that we called exchange for physical, and EFP back into spot Bitcoin. So that's a potential use case. But then, traders are going to have, say, multiple different products, multiple, say, ways, say, to trade these products, perhaps against each other. So I think, there's going to be increased needs for hedging. There's going to be increased opportunities, trading opportunities, as a result, say, of these new products. But I'd also say, when you look at the growth that we've seen in open interest currently, and the rise that we've seen in volume, and if you look at our October average daily volume for Bitcoin, we saw a 35% increase in October ADV relative, say, to September. On Ether, we saw a 40% rise. Our Bitcoin micro Ether future contracts have been doubled in volume, looking at October to September. And you would think that in November, we'd probably see a little bit, say, maybe less trading. But in fact, we're actually seeing even greater volumes in November. We're seeing, say, that continued pickup in volume. And when you look, say, across the suite, November volumes are up, I think about 13% compared, say, to October. So we're seeing, say, that interest in these products. All right. So we see market participants anticipating, say, the approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF, but we see those entities already trading other products, trading, say, our futures product, trading, say, the futures based ETFs, rather than simply, say, waiting for a spot ETF to be approved, right? And I think ultimately what drives value in this market is not so much, say, the availability of another product to trade. It's certainly going to make the market, say, more accessible and potentially new client base. But what ultimately is going to drive a value is really the use cases, right, for Bitcoin, the use cases, say, for Ether. And that's ultimately why market participants should be considering, say, trading these products.
Yeah, I think that this ETF is, like you said, an overall positive, and I think that it will actually bring a lot more volume to the futures markets because of all the reasons you said. And I'm glad you pointed those out because I feel the exact same way. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. I want to talk about Ether Bitcoin ratio futures. I mean, what benefit does it give traders and institutional investors to be able to capture the relative value of both Ether and Bitcoin in a single trade?
Yeah, absolutely. So we introduced Ether Bitcoin ratio future at the end of July. And what that allows market participants to do is to trade, say, that relative value or that performance of Ether relative to Bitcoin. So the contract itself represents the number of Bitcoin that are needed to buy, say, one Ether, right? So at current, that's simply just taking the price of Ether, dividing it, say, by the price of Bitcoin. So currently that ratio is running about 0.055. The futures contract actually goes out to 6 decimal places, right? So to your point, anybody who's looking to trade that relative performance, you don't need, say, to have a view, say, on Ether. You don't need to have a view, say, on Bitcoin. You just need to have a view on whether or not Bitcoin is going to outperform Ether, or is Ether going to outperform, say, Bitcoin. And rather than putting that position on manually, in which you have to trade individual contract in the market and be subject, say, to slippage, through this contract, you could do that in a single trade, right? So if you believe, for example, that Ether is going to outperform Bitcoin, you simply, say, buy that futures contract and hold it, say, till settlement, or hold it till whatever investment window you have. But if you see that Ether starts to outperform, you'll be making money, say, on that contract. Similarly, if you feel that Bitcoin is going to outperform, you're simply just selling that contract.
Yeah, it is a conversation talked about a lot out there in the crypto space, the performance between the two. And I think it's great that CME Group has put a market together for people just to go there and just see. Like you said, they don't have to have an opinion on one or the other. They just have an opinion on who's going to gain on one or the other. And I think it's an interesting trade. I think during specifically certain times where you had the NFT phase, you have all these different things where maybe Ethereum can become a lot more popular and people need to buy ETH, or they need to buy Bitcoin, or they need to sell one or the other. I think it's a very good product to have. I think it keeps it really simple for the retail traders out there to just know and understand, look at this is just that ratio. And I think this is what's going to happen. Just another way to go out there and trade our thoughts.
You mentioned, for example, the DeFi and NFTs. And certainly when you look at how Ether performs, say, relative to Bitcoin, end of 2021, when there was a lot of talk, say, about NFTs, you saw the price of Ether rise relative to Bitcoin. And certainly with, say, the merge last year, you again saw, say, Ether rise relative to Bitcoin. But what we're seeing now is really a lot of the talk is around, say, Bitcoin. I mean, we talked about, one of the catalysts being, say, the potential, the possibility, say, of a spot coin ETF, right? But then you also have the Bitcoin happening, which is when, say, the supply of Bitcoin coming into the market gets reduced in half. And that event is predicted, say, to occur around April of next year. So what we're seeing is, as a result, the price of Bitcoin has been outperforming, say, Ether. And in fact, 10 out of the last 11 months, Bitcoin has outperformed Ether. But what's interesting now, with the news, say, of a potential, say, Ether spot ETF, now you're seeing, say, renewed interest in Ether. And in fact, when you look at that ratio, that ratio when we've launched trading around a 0.07 handle, it's now trading at about a 0.05 handle, meaning that Ether, say, has been underperforming Bitcoin. But in November, we're kind of like seeing Ether kind of reverse that relationship a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see. And when you look at that contract, it carries, we list the contract out to 6 decimal places, and it has a $1 million multiplier. That sounds a little bit scary, but that just means that the notional value of the contract is roughly at current levels about $55,000. But when you look at the ratio itself, and you consider, say, the volatility of the ratio relative to the volatility of the underlying contracts, the ratio is actually less volatile, which means then that from a capital efficiency perspective, if you're looking to get exposure, the margin that you have to post to trade EBR, the ratio futures, relative to the margin that you have to post, say, for either Bitcoin or Ether, is lower. And in fact, at current levels, you're posting roughly about 14% to trade the ratio futures contract, versus, say, on Bitcoin, you're posting roughly 22%, and on Ether, you're posting close to 26%. So you can get that exposure to the relationship between Ether and Bitcoin more efficiently through trading the EBR ratio futures.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Once again, making it more accessible for someone to go out there and trade a strategy if it's based on something like that, instead of having to come up with all of that additional capital. It's just capital, it's more capital efficient.
It moves a lot. It moves on average, that in terms of the number of ticks, on average, the daily tick movement is over 100 ticks, each tick representing, say, about $5 per contract. But that's over $500 on average, say, a daily move, which is huge.
Yeah. I mean, you think about that relative to even some of the equity indexes and the micros and stuff. That's a pretty big move. One contract, $500 from top to bottom of the range. It brings me to my next thing that I want to talk about is this crypto classic that you guys are hosting at CME. I think this is great. As we are talking about today, the growth of crypto futures is really rampant right now. And I think that a lot more index traders are looking at other products as well. And I think that this is just a natural product for a lot of these equity index traders that are trading E-Mini S&P, E-Mini NASDAQ, or even if you're trading SPY, QQQ, you can check out. CME is hosting a challenge on trading Bitcoin and Ether futures. I believe options as well. Is that the case with this?
Yeah,
Gio?
and it's really exciting because we've done these challenges in the past, but this is the first challenge that's going to include, say, our suite of Bitcoin and Ether futures contracts. But for the first time, we're also you can also, say, trade Bitcoin and Ether options. So really exciting.
I expect this to be really big because, like I said, I mean, I think that you've got so many traders out there that are new to the future space because of the COVID traders. You've got the growth in the micros and the equity indexes. Obviously, we talked about today on how crypto futures are growing so rapidly as well. this is a great way to go out there, test your strategies, and you're actually competing for real money. This is a competition for real money. And it begins it begins Sunday, December 10th, and it goes till Friday, December 15th. And the first place winner will get $2,500. Second place is $1,500. Third place is $850. You can sign up for free at CMEGroup.com. I'll put that link down below in the description. I am just so glad to see CME do this and expand. The challenges have done so well. I've done several of the videos for the challenges throughout this year and in the past. And it's really incredible to see how many thousands of traders go in there to compete. And I think this crypto one, I don't know, Gio. It's going to be really interesting to see. I think this one's going to be pretty popular, man.
I love hearing that, and I hope that it is. I mean, it's a great opportunity, say, to like if you're not familiar with our markets, it's a great opportunity, say, to become familiar with our markets. I mean, in the challenge, I think that we offer 100,000, say, virtual money, play money, I might add, that you can trade, say, our Bitcoin and Ether futures contracts. So it's a great way, say, to learn about our products. It's a great way, say, to test different strategies. You mentioned, say, some of the cash prizes, but I think it's also a great way, say, to compete, say, with friends, right? And bragging rights, say, if you win or beat a friend out in this competition. And I got to ask you, Anthony, are you going to participate?
I'm signed up for it. I haven't signed up for it yet. I'm really interested on a personal level to go and try the options markets. I have not traded a crypto option to this point, and so I'm going to go in there and try them. I've been trading a lot more equity index options with the E-Mini S&P and micros and NASDAQ and Russell, but I'm going to go in there and take a look at how these options are moving in crypto, because like we said, crypto is moving right now. I mean, nothing set in stone that equity indexes are going to be super busy all at the end of this year and into next year. I know that everyone's got their ideas on what markets could do, but I think that crypto right now is on the move, and this is a great way to go out there, like you said, test strategies and compete for real cash prizes. And CME is hosting it, so it's legit. We're going to see these go out there and test these markets. Gio, I learned a lot today. I hope all the traders out there listening to this really got a grasp for crypto futures and what you guys have at CME Group. They're great products. I love the innovation. I love what you guys have done. Congratulations on the growth, and come back and talk with me soon, man. I mean, there's going to be a lot more conversations about this going forward. I just got that feeling.
Anthony, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun, and I hope to be back.
Thank you for listening to Futures Radio Show. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Never miss an episode. Go to anthonycrudele.com and get on our email list for show notifications and for free content that is exclusively for subscribers. Also on anthonycrudele.com, you will find tons of videos and education on trading futures, options, and crypto. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Opinions expressed are solely my own and my guests, and they do not express the views or opinions of my sponsors. Futures Radio Show is produced by Crudele Productions.